Where do we look for God? In this finite material world where nothing really lasts, where do we find our connection to the infinite source of life? Are there special sacred spots to which we can travel and experience God? Or are we instead strangers on the earth, sure to be disappointed if we look for the Spirit at some pilgrim spot? Can we build special structures where God will come and meet us? Or is any building only as holy as those people who gather there? The ancient spiritual traditions offer an answer to this mystery. Seek God within yourself. The outer church or temple is but a metaphor of your own inner church. Your body is the real temple. But the story doesn't end there. More can be told about this inner temple. Details, deeper insights about how the spiritual realm reveals itself to us in our own bodies. These details are well known in the Orient, carefully described in Buddhist and Hindu traditions. But the West knows of these ideas only by little recognized teachings, esoteric traditions. These traditions say that 7 spiritual centers within the human body are sensitive contact points where the spiritual world and the physical world touch. To many modern thinkers, such an idea sounds far-fetched, and yet our knowledge of the physical world changes as the boundaries of science expand. Breakthrough discoveries redefine what is possible. This is especially true of our search to understand the human body. With each passing year, we uncover new information about the body and its wisdom, its complexity. Ideas that may have previously seemed fanciful, even inconceivable, are shown to be true. An example of this is our understanding of energy itself. 100 years ago, atomic energy was unthinkable. 100 years before that, electricity. Even though we don't yet know how to measure it, could those subtle energies that flow through spiritual centers of the body be the next breakthrough? Ancient spiritual wisdom from East and the West has for centuries spoken of such subtle energy forms, expressions of the life spirit itself. These invisible energies and forces won't be easy to detect by physical instruments, but these traditions say they are very influential upon our physical, mental, and spiritual health. In some teachings from the East, the movement of these subtle energies is called the Kundalini. Sometimes it has been symbolized by a snake or serpent, probably because it follows a snake-like course up through the body. Might the dual snakes of the caduceus, the symbol of healing and the medical profession, be rooted in long-forgotten understanding of this Kundalini force and its influence on health? The flow of Kundalini energy connects 7 specific spots in the body, what we call the spiritual centers. In the Orient, they have been referred to as the chakras, a word meaning wheel. Through the ages, clairvoyants have seen these energy centers, described them as swirling vortices of life energy, with sections like flower petals or even the spokes of a wheel. No doubt the word chakra or wheel came from direct perception of their appearance by individuals gifted with so-called second sight or perception of higher realities. This program is an exploration of the spiritual centers, the chakras. You will learn exactly what a spiritual center is and how the 7 chakras located in your own body influence you every day. You'll discover insights about the spiritual centers that can help you understand healing, psychic perception, dream symbology, and meditative experiences. Furthermore, this program will provide you with exercises that can be done repeatedly, designed to heighten awareness of the centers and bring their activity into greater health and balance. Where do insights about the chakras come from? Some of the best are from the psychic information provided by Edgar Cayce, perhaps the best known and best documented American psychic. Cayce's upbringing hardly prepared him to become an expert on such an esoteric subject. Raised in the late 19th century, the notion of chakras was not a part of the traditional and conservative Christian methods he learned and practiced faithfully. And yet, as an adult, when he discovered the spontaneous ability to tap higher sources of knowledge, an expanded vision of the human body began to emerge from his clairvoyant perception. At first, his insights were confined to medical diagnoses. Thousands of people received accurate descriptions of ailments, along with treatment suggestions. His natural remedies and his insistence on the physical, mental, and spiritual components of healing made Cayce the forerunner of the modern holistic health movement. In later years, as the scope of his information expanded to include meditation instruction and dream interpretation, a rich and deep set of teachings about the spiritual centers began to emerge. Of course, most of the psychic readings given by Cayce were directed to specific individuals, helping them to understand their life challenges. In some of those cases, he felt that understanding the spiritual centers was so important that details of a sort of chakra's portrait were described. When an artist then sketched according to Cayce's indications, these charts gave a visual display of the 7 spiritual centers, differing in size according to how prominent a role each chakra played in that person's consciousness. What are Cayce's contributions to a topic that already had thousands of years' history in Eastern religious thought? At least 3 important themes were developed, ones that we'll be exploring in this program. First is the connection between the spiritual centers and the endocrine glands of the physical body. According to Cayce, it is through the hormonal secretions of these glands into the bloodstream that the entire physical body is influenced. Second, Cayce described how the chakras are directly related to the development of psychic abilities. And finally, his information provides a fascinating account of places in the Bible where teachings about the spiritual centers can be found. Foremost among his contributions in this field is a way of using the Lord's Prayer so that its portions correspond to the balancing and awakening of the 7 chakras. But Cayce is not alone as a figure from the West interested in the reality and importance of the chakras. We can go back as far as the 17th century and the work of the German mystic Jacob Boehme and his followers. One of Boehme's students, Johann Gitchel, published in 1696 this diagram of the human body. It shows an esoteric understanding of the body, one that clearly indicates the spiritual centers and the flow of energy among them. In more recent times, several contemporaries of Cayce presented detailed teachings about the chakras. Dr. Rudolf Steiner, an Austrian philosopher and clairvoyant, taught a meditative approach designed to bring maturity and balance to the spiritual centers. From among the some 350 volumes making up his collected works, his book, Knowledge of Higher Worlds and Its Attainment, is considered by many to be his finest and most important contribution, a book that gives detailed instructions about the chakras and a new meaning to spiritual initiation. Another contemporary of Cayce's who wrote extensively about the chakras system was C.W. Ledbetter, a leading theosophist in the early 20th century who compiled a classic study of the topic. Ledbetter was himself clairvoyant, and so his publications combined scholarly study with personal perception of the spiritual centers in operation. As Ledbetter was quick to point out, the chakras can be understood only by recognizing the intricacy of human nature. The spiritual centers are a rich and complex mix of many levels of activity. For example, each center is linked to a nerve plexus in the physical body. And like Cayce, Ledbetter also recognized that each chakra was linked to an endocrine gland. And even more important, the chakras exist within higher energy bodies. What Cayce called the finer physical body, and others have labeled the etheric body, as well as within the astral body and the spiritual body or soul. What evidence is there for such higher energy bodies? In recent times, the development of Kirlian photography has provided intriguing evidence of energy fields beyond what we can normally sense. Living things, from a tree leaf to a human fingertip, exhibit characteristic emanations with this technique. A weak electrical current passes along the photographic plate on which something has been placed. Although it's controversial as to exactly what is being detected, many people believe that it's the beginning of discoveries that will someday validate scientifically the etheric body. Another set of examples can be found in art. halos and auras that are frequently depicted around holy figures. Is this merely an artistic device to indicate someone with higher consciousness, or is it based on an ancient and wise tradition? Could it be that these illustrations of light extending beyond the flesh body are a reminder, a clue, that every one of us possesses levels of energy not usually seen? More widely accepted is the Chinese medical science of acupuncture. In recent times, more and more physicians in the Western world have begun to practice these techniques. Acupuncture teaches that subtle energies flow along meridian lines of the body. By the insertion of needles at key points, blockages in the flow of this primal life force can be removed. In fact, psychically sensitive individuals such as Cayce, Steiner, and Ledbetter talked about subtle energy bodies as matter-of-factly as most of us speak of the weather. All this evidence for higher energy bodies suggests that there may be something quite real to the ancient teachings about the chakras. Expert sources on the chakras describe these 7 energy centers as located in the more subtle bodies, particularly the etheric body, or what Cayce called the finer physical body, a label that emphasizes how connected and influential it is to the familiar flesh body. But what role do the spiritual centers actually play? What is their job? Each chakra is a connection point, linking the physical body in the material world with the soul body in the spiritual world. That connection serves several purposes. One is to transmit energy, the force that gives vitality in life itself. We could borrow a term from physics that corresponds to what the spiritual center is doing. The term transducer. A transducer is a device that takes energy in one form and changes it into energy in another form. For example, a common telephone is a transducer. It takes the electrical impulses that travel along telephone wires and alters the energy patterns into sound which we can hear. The analogy captures the essence of one function of a chakra. It takes energy from the spiritual world and, by altering its vibrations, makes it available to us in our physical bodies. Energy flow is crucial to our understanding of how the chakras operate. Not only do chakras provide the flow of energy into the physical body, but there is also a flow of energy from one center to another, something we'll look at more closely later. Another purpose of these 7 connection points is to store the memory patterns of the soul. The question of where memory is stored is an elusive one. Medical science has never been able to pinpoint the location. While there is certain evidence that portions of our brain relate to particular types of remembrance, other evidence suggests that the brain alone cannot account for all memory. In fact, some memory seems to be present at the cellular level throughout the physical body. Cayce and others suggest that memory also resides in the higher energy bodies, and that the spiritual centers play an important role. Certain types of patterns are imprinted in particular chakras. A hint of this can be found in colloquial expressions. We naturally and intuitively link types of experience and memory to certain places in the body. Our language gives us clues about the chakras. Expressions such as broken-hearted, fire in the belly, stubborn and stiff-necked. They suggest that memories related to love and emotions reside in the heart region. Concerns about power and initiative live in the mid-abdomen, and willfulness relates to the neck and throat. In fact, these and other common expressions simply confirm an ancient concept about the chakras. There are 7 primary areas of human experience, one related to each of the spiritual centers. The location of the first chakra is usually described as the groin area or the base of the spine, the root chakra. It is associated with basic survival, both the survival of the species through physical reproduction and also individual survival through the necessities of life. We all have many memories and patterns of behavior related to this area of human experience, and they are stored within the first spiritual center. The location of the second chakra is in the lower abdomen. It is especially related to the polarities of life, most notably the balance between masculine and feminine aspects within us all. That delicate balance between yin and yang, between passive and active, creates many patterns of thinking, feeling, and acting that directly relate to the second chakra. When this center is out of harmony, we can become one-sided in our approach. pushing for the dominance of one aspect over the other. Or we may project the side of ourselves that is weak onto someone else. Either way, it relates to our interpersonal relationships. The third spiritual center is found in the solar plexus region. It is associated with the use of power at a personal and material world level. In its negative expression, it can be anger, resentment, or fear. But when this center operates in a more healthy way, it provides the personal power for courage and initiative. The fourth chakra is located in the heart region, just behind the breastbone. It is the center of love, love at a human level, as distinguished from the universal love associated with the seventh center. When this center's activity is clouded by misunderstanding and confusion, it can be felt as envy, jealousy, or even more often, worry. The fifth spiritual center resides in the throat area. It's the chakra associated with free will. In its negative expression, it can produce willfulness and stubbornness in some people, indecisiveness in others. When it operates in a healthy way, one can make independent decisions, but also be responsive and obedient to a higher will. The sixth chakra, according to Cayce, is at the top of the head and down through its very centermost point. It is the spiritual center of higher mind, the mind of the universal Christ. Here, intellect and intuition blend harmoniously. Here there is soul memory, even of past life experiences. And finally, the seventh chakra is located at and just behind the forehead. This is the highest center in terms of consciousness, although positioned slightly lower in the body. The seventh center is associated with oneness and divine love. It is the chakra of spiritual healing. You can experience the immediate presence of these spiritual centers, their living, active quality, with a simple meditative exercise. Of course, the actual way in which this is experienced will be somewhat different for each person. Some individuals will immediately feel a bodily sensation in specific areas. Others will get an intuitive impression of the energy flow at certain centers, while still others may find that they have to practice the exercise several times before the results are evident. So get comfortable in a seating position. You may want to close your eyes for this exercise. Sit so that your back is straight, allowing the centers to be as aligned as possible in your body. Little or no effort is required of you for this meditative exercise. Just place your attention where you are instructed and let the words guide your experience. First, before we turn to the spiritual centers themselves, just feel how easy it is to direct your attention and move your awareness into and through parts of your body. Move your consciousness to your left elbow. Feel what's happening there. Sense the nerves, body, skin, and blood that are active and conscious there. Then to your right big toe. Experience the consciousness of your body in this spot. Then to your chin. Recognize how simple it is to move your attention and to become very clearly aware of what's happening in parts of your body. Now, while you are very still and relaxed, feel your entire physical body. Notice its level of vitality, its rate and depth of breathing. Sense its pulse. Where does all that vitality come from? What is the source of its life? Interpenetrating your physical body is a higher energy body, a finer physical body, or etheric body. It's a replica of your flesh body, simply made up of higher vibrations, a higher form of energy. Perhaps you can intuitively sense it right now. It may even give you an awareness or a sensation that extends a little further out than your flesh body. Pulsating with energy and consciousness within the etheric body are 7 spiritual centers, 7 wheels of energy, the chakras. Move your attention to the location of the first chakra, in the area of your reproductive glands, the gonads. What do you feel here? This is the basic source of creative energy, This center is sometimes called the root chakra. Does it feel vital and energetic, or does it seem blocked and sluggish? Then move your awareness up slightly to the second center. This is the chakra that is associated with creativity and balance between the polarities of yin and yang. What do you sense here? Does the energy feel balanced, alive, and creative? Or does it feel one-sided and out of equilibrium? Now allow your attention to focus on the third chakra, in the solar plexus area. What do you feel here? This is the center of power as it's used in the material world. Does the energy at this center feel like initiative and courage, or do you sense fear, anger, or resentment here? Now on to the fourth center, or heart chakra. It corresponds to love at a personal level and all the types of relationships. What do you pick up about the energy patterns there? Do you feel compassion and genuine loving openness, or do you feel jealousy, envy, or worry? Move your awareness on upward to the fifth center, or throat chakra, the center of free will and choice. What do you feel here? Do you feel that sensitive balance between independent decision-making and obedience to a higher will? Or do you sense a strong tendency towards stubbornness or indecision? Then let your attention focus on the sixth center, or crown chakra, at the top and center of your head. This is the center of higher mind. Its wheel of energy, its spiral vortex movement, opens upward into the space above your head, ready to draw upon energy and knowledge from beyond yourself. How aware are you of its presence? To what extent has its activity been clouded from your day-to-day consciousness? And finally, move your awareness to the seventh center, which is at your forehead and just behind. This is the chakra of oneness and spiritual healing. How conscious have you been of its presence? No matter how conscious or unconscious you've been in the past, just be aware of its activity right now. Like 7 musical instruments in an orchestra ensemble, your 7 spiritual centers create the music of your life. Sometimes one instrument plays louder than the rest, overshadowing the others, even drowning them out. Which of your chakras may have a tendency to do this? On other occasions, the 7 centers seem to be in tune with each other, supporting each other and creating harmony. Let a positive memory come to your mind now, and think about how in that moment your 7 chakras were in tune with each other, working together. Now let your awareness slowly come back to your normal state. Let your attention move from these subtle levels of energy in your body to your normal awareness of your physical body and the world around you. And then, if your eyes have been closed, you can gradually open them. How did that feel? Were impressions from some of the chakras stronger or clearer for you than from others? Remember that the spiritual centers are not merely places within the body. They are present and active within the mind, too. Images and symbols speak to the human mind, whether we are conscious of it or not, about these 7 levels of human experience. On the one hand, these symbolic impressions sometimes give us feedback about the degree of health and balance we have at a particular center, a kind of feedback mechanism that can operate during dreams or in meditation. On the other hand, symbolic images from religious or other cultural rituals can exist to stimulate or even transform particular chakras. The symbology of the first 4 spiritual centers has sometimes been presented as a set of images. For example, in the Bible they appear in both the vision of Ezekiel and in the Revelation. Ezekiel had a profound inner experience, a vision, in which he saw a wheel. And within the wheel he saw the spirit of the beast, and there were 4 of them, the calf, the man, the lion, and the eagle. Those same 4 images appear again in the symbology of the Revelation of John, the final book of the Bible. Here, the four beasts, the four lower chakras, must bow down or become subservient to the higher self. Edgar Cayce's translation of these images linked them to the chakras, symbols for the four lower centers. These first four centers especially relate to our experiences as physical beings in materiality, the earthly side of us, whereas the three upper chakras correspond to the divine aspect of us all. Not only do specific images relate to the spiritual centers, but according to Cayce, other types of correspondence can be found as well. The four classic elements, earth, water, fire, and air, can be associated with the first four centers. The 7 colors of the spectrum, the notes of the octave, with the 8th note in the scale being a return to the original tone at a higher level, representing the 7 chakras in full balance. The first spiritual center is characterized by the color red, the tone on the musical scale of Do, and the element earth. A bull or a calf are universal symbols for this chakra. The second chakra is symbolized by the color orange, the tone of Re, and the element water. The human form is a universal image for this center, but an erogenous one, in whom the qualities of male and female have been harmonized. This is the chakra that is related to the soul's impulse toward wholeness and the coming together of opposites. Sexuality is a part of that process, and so symbols of physical union tie into this center as well. The third spiritual center is represented by the color yellow. The tone is Mi, and the element fire. A lion or any of the great cats are universal symbols here. This is the chakra of personal power. The fourth chakra is represented by the color green in the spectrum, the tone Fa, and the element air. An eagle or any bird can serve as an appropriate symbol for this spiritual center. Its location is in the body near the lungs. This center is linked to our loves and concerns. The fifth spiritual center is symbolized by the color blue and the tone So. It's the chakra of will, decision-making, personal identity. It can mean the will to seek, and so we may find symbols of a far-off goal. And in the spiritual quest, we come to a point where we need to surrender personal will to a higher will. In Christian imagery, this is the cross. But as Cayce has pointed out, the symbol of the cross should always go hand in hand with the crown, an image related to the next chakra. The sixth center, according to Cayce, is the crown center. The color here is indigo, and the tone is La. This is the chakra of the universal Christ nature. Its symbol is the higher mind, ancient wisdom, the wise older person. The seventh center, according to Cayce, is located in the body a bit lower than the sixth. The color is violet, and the note is T. But teachings about the location of the sixth and seventh centers are often contradictory, with contrasting points of view. Some sources differ with Cayce and insist that it's the sixth chakra that is found at the forehead. But since the activities of these two chakras are so closely tied to each other, it may be best to follow the Tibetan system that considers them as a single complex activity. Symbology, then, for these two highest chakras is probably mingled. It includes mountaintop, or man-made efforts to extend upward in search of the divine, cathedral, pyramid, the sun, or any form of light. Simply understanding the symbols related to the chakras can be helpful to anyone on a personal spiritual quest. It can help us interpret dreams or spontaneous images that might come in meditation. It also allows us to see the history of religious thought in a new light. Each chakra is truly a spiritual center. A profound encounter with the energies of one chakra can stimulate the universal images that reside there in the collective memory of humanity. But we can look deeper at the meaning of the chakras and how they operate. Not only do they correspond to universal patterns in the souls of men and women, they also directly influence the physical body and general health. Cayce and others have pointed out that an endocrine gland, along with a nerve plexus, serve as representatives for each of the spiritual centers in the flesh body. The endocrine glands have a profound influence on virtually every aspect of our physiology. They secrete into the bloodstream powerful chemicals called hormones. Those hormones, in turn, control everything from growth to metabolism to aging. The endocrine system is a big part of Cayce's answer to the mind-body question. Physical health and disease are largely influenced by the operation of the endocrines. In turn, the endocrine system is linked to the mind and the soul, as the chakras in the higher energy bodies directly affect specific endocrine glands. The first chakra is associated with the reproductive glands, the gonads, the testes in the male and the ovaries in the female. The second spiritual center Cayce identified with the cells of Leydig, tiny areas that are actually within the reproductive glands themselves. The glands linked to both the first and second chakras produce various sex hormones. The close proximity of these two endocrine centers may be part of the explanation for why some systems, such as the Tibetan, occasionally treat the first two chakras as one. The third chakra is linked to the adrenal glands, which sit on top of the kidneys. This endocrine center is probably the one with which we are most familiar. Actually, an adrenal gland is a gland within a gland. The outer portion produces a wide variety of hormones that affect the reproductive system, blood sugar, the concentration of minerals in the blood. The inner part secretes two hormones, noradrenaline and the well-known adrenaline. Its effects are what we experience when we are under stress, feeling angry or fearful. It gives us that accustomed rush of energy. Tiny amounts of a hormone can have an extraordinary impact on the body. With adrenaline, heart rate, blood pressure, and respiration increase, and the digestion of food is temporarily suspended. All it takes to activate this complex reaction is a single thought of anger or fear. This is an example of the third spiritual center and its corresponding endocrine gland operating under stress and imbalance. Fortunately, there's a positive side. Each chakra and its corresponding endocrine gland is capable of healthy, balanced stimulation. When the mind and soul are functioning harmoniously, each spiritual center can express positive qualities into the physical body via the hormones of the endocrine glands. The fourth chakra is associated with the thymus gland, located right behind the breastbone. Medical science knows that this endocrine center is particularly related to the body's immune system. It produces thymosin, a hormone that stimulates the production of lymphocyte cells that help the body to fight infection. The fifth spiritual center Cayce linked to the thyroid gland, which surrounds the windpipe and secretes hormones such as thyroxine that control the metabolism rate in the body. When the thyroid is not functioning properly, a person frequently develops a swelling or goiter in that area as the gland tries to readjust. The sixth chakra Cayce identified with the pineal gland, located right at the center of the brain. Hundreds of years ago, the philosopher René Descartes claimed that the pineal was the seat of the soul, a theory that was thoroughly rejected by medical science. Yet Cayce and others have linked this endocrine gland to the sixth chakra. The pineal secretes the hormone melatonin, and production of this hormone is directly influenced by light striking the eyes. One effect of melatonin is upon activity in the cells of Leydig, the second spiritual center. This biological link between the hormones of the sixth and second chakras will be echoed when we look at how the Cayce readings describe the flow of Kundalini energy among the chakras themselves. Finally, the seventh chakra is associated with the pituitary gland, the master gland of the body. It produces a set of master control hormones that in turn influence the other endocrine centers. The pituitary sits in a bony cup surrounded largely by sinus cavities. Because of its location, some meditators have speculated that deep breathing exercises and even chanting may directly affect the pituitary, and therefore this highest chakra as well. The spiritual centers are always active and functioning, but not necessarily in as balanced and healthy a way as they might. Each chakra has a tremendous potential, but most of the time that potential is blocked or closed off. We can speak then of opening a chakra. That is, intensifying our experience of the potentials within that particular center. This is not something to be taken lightly. If we aren't sufficiently prepared, the intensity of energy can be disturbing. The soul patterns within that chakra can be confusing. This is why the Cayce readings say to let the centers open naturally, of their own accord. Don't try to force them open. In fact, Cayce suggests that this very teaching is found in the Bible, in that mysterious book of the Revelation. Here we find an account of a deep meditation experience of John, one that is principally symbolic of his own inner life and our own. The 7 churches represent the 7 centers. Each church is addressed by the higher self and told of its faults and its strengths, the universal tendencies of each specific chakra. In this profound meditation experience, John also sees a book with 7 seals, again symbolic of the 7 spiritual centers. He wants to open the book and read from it, but the seals keep him from doing so because he's not ready. Here, according to Cayce, is a lesson about our own spiritual centers. They do not fully open to all their potentials because it may not be in our own best interest for them to open prematurely. How can this opening ever come about? In the Revelation, it is the Lamb that comes and opens them, allowing John to learn the contents of the sacred book. The Lamb is an emblem for the universal Christ spirit of love, patience, and self-sacrifice. The message is clear. Do not try to force open the centers. No doubt there are techniques that will prod the chakras open, methods to get an intense rush of spiritual energy through the centers, or even an impressive psychic experience. But a better, more balanced approach is to allow the centers to open as they will, to trust that as we mature spiritually, we can expect them to open and give us more intense experiences when we can handle them. Cayce's readings go on to suggest a way to consciously work with the flow of energy through the centers and to invite their natural opening. Again, it's based on biblical teachings, an esoteric understanding that most people may never have recognized. The Lord's Prayer is specifically linked to the chakras. This is certainly not the only way to work with the special prayer, but Cayce indicates that it's a powerful yet safe way to focus attention upon the centers, especially as we begin a period of meditation. To understand how the Lord's Prayer can work, we need to first see how energy flows among the chakras. Remember that the spiritual centers are points of contact for the flow of spiritual energy in 2 ways. First, there are the channels by which the invisible spirit world is connected to the physical world. But second, and just as important, there is a flow of energy from one chakra to another, a network that connects them. Here's where Cayce departs from many of the Eastern philosophies about the chakras. Rather than the Kundalini energy moving up and subsequently activating the chakras from the lowest to the highest, Cayce suggests that we want to move the energy directly from the first and second center up to the 2 highest ones. Like an express train that doesn't make all the local stops, this creative life force can be lifted directly to the pineal center. Think of this chakra as a vortex of energy atop the head that opens upward. Meeting the upward flow at this center is the creative spirit of God that flows downward and meets our own rising energy. As these 2 streams of energy meet at the 6th chakra at the top of the head, they can then move downward, spilling over into the pituitary center and then back downward to connect with the other centers. The point of the Lord's Prayer, then, is to invite this Kundalini force to rise upward within the body without awakening the soul patterns that are stored within the lower centers. It calls upon the life force to bypass certain forms of negativity that are likely to be within the 4 lower centers. Here's how the prayer works. First, it addresses the 3 upper chakras, the ones that are less involved in our daily material life consciousness. Our Father who art in heaven, the pituitary center. Hallowed be thy name, the pineal center. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, the thyroid center. In earth, referring to the 4 lower centers as a group. As it is in heaven, the 3 upper centers as a group. Now the prayer begins to address the first 4 chakras, and in each case it affirms something positive, an antidote to the typical negativity that can reside in that spiritual center. It's a call to the Kundalini energy to move directly upward without getting entangled in that center and its issues. Give us this day our daily bread, the gonad center. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors, the adrenal or solar plexus center. Lead us not into temptation, the cells of Leydig center. Deliver us from evil, the thymus or heart center. The prayer then concludes with an affirmation that the creative energy has, in fact, reached the higher centers. For thine is the kingdom, the thyroid center, and the power, the pineal center, and the glory forever, the pituitary center. How then would we actually use this prayer? If it's one secret for working with the chakras, how is it best done? Cayce's answer was to feel the meaning of each part of the prayer as you say it, and to hold that meaning in the location of each particular chakra. This prayer is not a magic formula. It's not a sorcerer's incantation, but it does work whenever we sincerely feel the meaning of the words. Many people have found that it's a powerful tool to use right at the beginning of meditation. It attunes the centers, giving direction to the Kundalini energy that awakens and intensifies as soon as we are still and quiet and begin to focus attention inwardly. Let's look more closely then at how Cayce suggests this energy starts to flow among the centers if the Lord's Prayer is used successfully, allowing the life force to move directly from the gonads and cells of the Leydig straight up to the pineal and then the pituitary. The energy next moves back down to the solar plexus chakra, to the adrenal center. Here it works to cleanse, heal, and lift vibrations. Most of us have a lot of healing work to be done at this center. But not only is it a primary point in need of healing, it also serves as a dispersal point, a grounded power place within the body. The energy moves out to each of the other centers in turn: throat chakra, heart chakra, lower abdomen chakra, and root chakra, each time returning to the solar plexus chakra. This third center is a sort of distribution point once the energy begins to flow back downward from the top of the head. This continual return to the third chakra creates a pattern of flow that is somewhat like a figure 8, with the crossover point at the solar plexus. The chakras are not only contact points for the life force and storehouses of soul memory patterns, they are also instruments of knowing and perception. But what kind of knowledge do the chakras provide? Not so much information about the world around us. We have sensory organs to do that: our eyes, ears, and nose. The spiritual centers are receptors for knowledge about things in the mental and spiritual realms. The Cayce reading suggests a model to explain how psychic perception works, a theory that includes a key role for the chakras. Normal perception of the physical world involves the 5 senses. We become consciously aware of at least a portion of what is available to our sensory organs. Much gets filtered out or ignored simply because we'd otherwise be overloaded with information. But just as the physical body can receive impressions, so can the etheric body, the finer physical body. Its sources are in the mental and the spiritual worlds. The chakras operate like tuning devices. They determine exactly what the finer physical body will receive in the way of information and impressions. Cayce suggests that we think of the analogy of a radio. As we make tuning adjustments, we get different broadcast stations. Not only are certain chakras especially receptive to particular types of psychic material, the overall degree of balance and harmony among the chakras creates an overall level of attunement for the finer physical body. There are countless sources of information from the mental and spiritual worlds. Some of it is reliable and useful, some of it is confusing and misleading. When the spiritual centers are not balanced and healthy, disturbing psychic experiences can occur. Of course, many people asked Cayce especially about the development of their own ESP. The answers from his readings often emphasized physical health. Just as the condition of the chakras influences the body through the hormones of the endocrine centers, the condition of the body can have an influence back upon the chakras. For example, by working with disciplines to make the physical body more healthy, we affect the attunement level of the etheric body. By working to balance the physical body, the spiritual centers are brought into greater harmony and make it easier for the finer physical body to tune in to the highest sources of psychic awareness. What glands or centers are particularly tied into distinct forms of psychic perception? The thymus, or fourth chakra, is tied to telepathy. This sort of mind-to-mind communication has been shown to happen most readily between individuals where there is loving concern. The adrenals, or third chakra, appear to be linked to mediumship, the use of one's body to allow deceased individuals to communicate back into the material world. Cayce generally did not encourage the development of this form of psychic ability, and there has been a misunderstanding by some people that Cayce himself operated this way, which he did not. But in the long history of mediumship, we find the tradition that psychic energy, or even the voice, projects from the medium's solar plexus. Speaking in tongues may well be associated with the thyroid, or fifth chakra, the remembrance of past lives with the pineal gland, or sixth center, and spiritual healing with the pituitary gland, or seventh chakra. In fact, spiritual healing may be the highest form of psychic experience, one that is directed by the pituitary center but influenced by the other chakras as well. One way that we can experience spiritual healing is through the laying on of hands. Touch healing methods have been practiced for centuries. For example, in the Bible we find many illustrations of how healing power can be transmitted from one person to another through touch. It makes sense to suppose that healing directed to specific chakras may be effective. The soul patterns that influence illness of any kind live in the spiritual centers. And although Cayce didn't call the hands themselves a chakra, his readings and many other sources that speak of subtle energies describe the hands as primary dispersal points for spiritual forces. Truly, our hands can be instruments of communication, of light, and of healing. How might we do this? First, we can practice laying on of hands for ourselves. After a period of meditation, we can direct healing energy specifically to a center that seems to have special need. For example, if you are blocked in making a decision, laying on of hands for the throat chakra might be appropriate. If you are struggling with a love relation, laying on of hands for yourself at the heart center would be called for. The readings refer to the left hand as receptive and the right hand as active. This is apparently a universal principle. No matter which hand you use for writing, the left hand is placed on the front of the body and the right on the back. However, when the focus is upon the pineal center, or sixth chakra, one can simply place both hands on the top of the head. For the fourth center especially, the hand placement may be a bit awkward. Put your left hand over your heart and then reach back over your shoulder with the right hand. Don't be worried whether or not you're able to stretch your arm far enough. With your mind, focus attention and energy on that spiritual center. The other chakras will be much easier. The amount of time devoted to this could range from half a minute to several minutes. Those who are working diligently with meditation and self-healing were also encouraged by Cayce to practice laying on of hands for others. Again, energy directed toward the chakras may be an effective technique. When the illness is located in a specific part of the body, a leg, an arm, or whatever, then the laying on of hands will probably include touch directly on that spot. But for any illness, physical, attitudinal, emotional, or spiritual, Laying on of hands for the chakras may also be useful. Here the channel for healing must use his or her own intuitive sensitivity. Which spiritual centers are most in need of balancing and healing? Which chakras need to be most directly involved in transforming this illness? It's usually wise to use touch healing on the pineal and pituitary centers, whatever the problem may be. Both hands can be placed on the top of the head, and then the right hand, the active distributor of the energy, on the back of the head, and the left hand, the receptive, on the forehead. For any of the other 5 chakras, this same pattern can be followed, with the left hand on the front of the body and the right hand on the back. What makes the laying on of hands work is not the technique itself. Knowing the best method for the placement of the hands is useful, but what really matters is the spiritual attunement of the healing channel. When you practice laying on of hands for yourself, you may or may not feel anything happening. If you do, it's likely to be warmth or an actual sense of energy movement. But whether you do or not, changes are being done in the subtle energy bodies. The same principle holds true for laying on of hands done for someone else. The recipient may or may not have sensations, but even if the changes don't come into conscious awareness at that time, the healing work is still going on. Before moving on to a final experience with the chakras, one that you can use over and over again on a regular basis, let's review the key points that we've covered. These essential ideas form the heart of what the Cayce readings teach us about the chakras. These mysterious connection points to the spiritual world. 1. Our contact with God and the spiritual world is within our own bodies. 2. Each chakra is a spiritual center. Each one is important to our spiritual search. 3. Each of the 7 chakras has an aspect in not only the flesh body, through the endocrine glands, but in higher energy bodies as well, what Cayce referred to as the finer physical body, or others have called the etheric body. 4. The spiritual centers aren't really a foreign idea. If we look carefully, we can find teachings about them in the biblical tradition. And if we examine our own dreams, we're likely to find symbolic images that represent their activity. 5. The chakras control the flow of spiritual energy. They act as transducers that change rates of vibration so that higher, more subtle energies can manifest in the material world. And the 7 centers themselves form a network. There is an orderly pattern to how the energies can flow from one center to another, especially when we quiet ourselves and focus the mind in meditation. And finally, 6. The spiritual centers are storehouses for the patterns of the soul. Now let's do a final exercise designed to bring together the ideas that we've examined. This imaginative exercise can be used on a regular basis, and it might be especially useful right at the beginning of a meditation session. Although Cayce discouraged people from actually meditating on specific chakras, a part of one's preparation for meditation might well focus on balancing and harmonizing the spiritual centers. Sitting comfortably, make sure that your posture is erect. Take a moment now to slowly and deeply inhale. Feel your chest expand. Fill your lungs fully. That air is like the life force itself. And then exhale, letting go of everything you and your body don't need anymore. Stale air, old hurts, worn-out feelings about yourself and your life. Then inhale deeply again and let it out, totally relaxing. If you want, you can even let your eyelids begin to drop as they feel pleasantly relaxed and heavy. Breathe in one more time. Fill not only your lungs, but your entire body with vitality and energy. And then, let it go. Release everything you don't need anymore. And now you're feeling very relaxed, and perhaps your eyes are closing, and your breathing can be more gentle. But still you feel the power of this breathing rhythm. Energy and vitality flowing in. That which is from your past and no longer needed flowing out. Simply be aware of your body now. It feels vibrant and pulsating with creative force. It's very relaxed and yet alive and vital. And your mind is totally at peace, but still alert and receptive. You will be moving now to a more sensitive awareness about your body and the spiritual forces that flow through it. This will be a very positive experience for you. Your consciousness will expand to become aware of energies that are alive within you all the time. Your consciousness will expand exactly as far as you can comfortably go today and have a very positive, healing experience. Simply be aware of your body now. And as you do, you may sense that interpenetrating your physical body is at least one other body of your own, an etheric or higher energy body. Within that higher body are 7 wheels of energy, moving, spinning vortices of light. Move your awareness through your body from bottom to top, and remember where these spiritual centers are located. At the base of your spine and the reproductive glands area. In your lower abdomen. In your solar plexus. At your heart. At your throat. At the top of your head. And at your forehead. Each of these points is a spiritual center. Each one has an important role to play in making your life healthy and fulfilling. Each of these chakras is a channel for the flow of creative, spiritual energy into your life. Feel your desire for wholeness, balance, and harmony in the activities of these centers. Know that with your focused attention and your imaginative forces, you can make that a reality. With the power of your mind, through your imaginative forces, you will direct a flow of energy that passes through these chakras in an optimal way. Following first the pattern of the parts of the Lord's Prayer, you'll experience that this creative energy can be lifted directly to the highest centers. Feel the first spiritual center, the root chakra, the point of origination for the Kundalini flow. Speak silently to that center with words of trust. It's the center that relates to basic survival. Its concern is to have the necessary physical resources of life. Speak to it with words of assurance. There will be enough. Today I will receive whatever I need. And with that feeling of trust, the energy will be free to move directly upward. Now speak silently to the solar plexus. Tell this chakra to be forgiving, to release and forgive. Then direct your attention to the chakra in your lower abdomen, the cells of Leydig center. The distractions of life are not going to be a problem. You are being led. Feel an assurance that the best way will be shown to you. And then speak silently to your heart chakra. All patterns of living that lack love are removed. the Kundalini energy will be free to move directly to the highest centers without yet activating this heart center. Now imagine that there is a direct flow of creative energy from your second chakra directly to your sixth at the top of your head. A free flow of vitality. And at the top of your head, this energy from within yourself meets an even greater energy that flows downward into you. Put all your awareness right there at that pinnacle center. Simply be in that light. You may experience inwardly the spectral color indigo that corresponds to this center, or you may experience it simply as white light. And then feel that energy spill over, downward slightly to the pituitary center. Let all of your attention rest at your forehead and back inward to the pituitary gland itself. You might experience this as the utmost color of the spectrum, violet, or perhaps as a golden light, also symbolic of this highest center. Now feel this energy as it begins to move back downward. It has taken on the vibration of the two supreme chakras, and now it can do a healing and balancing work with the other centers. Let the energy move to the solar plexus chakra and the adrenal glands. You may want to help direct this energy even more by doing laying on of hands for yourself. Placing your left hand in front of you, right hand in back. Affirm the positive qualities of this center. Persistence and courage. You may get a feeling of the third spectral color here, yellow. Let your imaginative forces fill this center with a yellow light. This solar plexus chakra will serve as a distribution point for the balancing, harmonizing energy. It moves now back to the root chakra. Again, you may want to do the laying on of hands for yourself to help focus the energy. Left hand in front and right hand in back. Affirm the positive qualities of this center. Strength, vitality. The color here for balance is red. Allow a brilliant, dynamic red light to vitalize and harmonize this center. Now, sense the energy returning to the solar plexus, and then flowing outward again to the second chakra, to a spot in your lower abdomen about 6 inches below your solar plexus. And affirm the positive qualities of this chakra when it's operating in a healthy way. Creativity and harmonious balance between the many opposites of life. Fill this center with light, the color orange. And the flow of this creative energy returns once again to the solar plexus, and then is directed to the heart chakra. Feel and affirm the positive potentials of this center. Love, patient understanding, compassion, and feel that this spiritual center is filled with a green light that balances and harmonizes its activities. Experience how the energy comes back once more to the solar plexus to be renewed. And still carrying the imprint, the vibration of the pineal and pituitary centers, that energy moves to the throat chakra and affirms silently the positive qualities of this center. Free will, decisiveness, obedience to a higher purpose. And let a healing blue light fill and radiate from this chakra. And then let the energy return one more time to the solar plexus. Just be silent now for a moment. Like an ensemble of fine musical instruments, each with their own special contribution to make, your 7 spiritual centers are pulsating with light, rhythmically in tune with each other. The music that flows out from them is the music of your life, your way of meeting the world and other people moment to moment. These 7 windows to the spiritual world are now a little bit more balanced, a little bit more in attune with the highest purpose of your soul.